fascinating watching you choreograph, showing off all the products you've purchased.
Thank you.
Fascinating, I say.
That was cutting a little bit for me, the audio.
It might be louder, coming through louder than normally.
Oh,
everything sounds good on my end, so, but sorry, I guess.
Your end is the only end that matters, Bo.
That's what he said.
It's true.
All right, so you ready to start recording? I'll just hit the tick tick ticks and we're good.
Yeah, you hit the tick tick ticks. I'll pull up the script, and we will go.
All right, so I'm gonna play the readme.txt music and then just say there's no news. Does that sound like a good plan? Or should I not play it at all and just skip?
Let's just talk about how there isn't going to be one. And just move right through.
Sounds fair.
Sweet. Hello and welcome everybody to the Exclamation Mark podcast, the podcast that only comes with one controller. My name is Crofton Steers. I am one of your two hosts for this adventure through the world of video games. The other host, of course, is my good buddy, Bo Schwartz. Bo, welcome.
Hello, Crofton. Hello, Exclamation Mark podcast listeners. We're back. You thought we were killed, but we got an extra life, and we've come back 2 weeks later to bring you another episode of your favorite video game podcast. We know it's your favorite because if you're listening to it, it was pretty hard to find, so you must like it if you're coming back.
We hope it's your favorite. That's for damn sure.
Hell yeah.
The thing is, it's been a couple of weeks, but it's the summer, right? And I was away on vacation. It was just hard to coordinate. So we just decided, let's take a breather, there's been a lot of busyness with E3 and all that. We banged out a few episodes. I've been putting out the blog and this. And so we just took a little bit of a pause, but hopefully everybody comes back and continues to
We're not pod fading, friends.
Not pod fading. Is that a term?
Yeah, pod fading is a term for how like people start with a podcast with a bang, and then all of a sudden there's no new episodes. You never hear from them. Maybe one episode gets released that's like, don't worry, we're still doing the podcast. That's pod fading.
Oh, really? So when you say don't worry, we're still doing the podcast, that's a bad sign?
It's not a bad sign if you still do the podcast. But for example, the Bugle is currently pod fading. I'm a fan of the Bugle, John Oliver and Andy Seltzman. Anyways, John Oliver has a show on HBO now. He's kind of busy with that awesome thing.
It's a good show, yeah.
So the Bugle's kind of pod fading, but maybe they'll be back.
I think that no matter what he does, he comes back. They've
had like over 300 episodes. It's not like it's no small thing that they're pod fading. They've been around for a long time.
Maybe, well, every good thing must come to an end, right? Except for the exclamation mark, folks.
We are immortal.
Yeah, we say after like 15 episodes or whatever.
We pod fade the next episode.
Now, right. Bo and I spoke a little bit before the show. We were thinking about doing a little bit of a different thing this week, just because we've actually played quite a few games since last we spoke, and there hasn't been a ton of news, and there's going to be a lot of news with Gamescom coming up soon. So we thought we'd lay off a bit the news this week and talk a bit about games we're playing. But before we do any of that, I want to talk to Bo about Windows 10, which is out now, and he supposedly has installed on his computer. I have Windows 7. I didn't even dip my toes into Windows 8. So I am curious if he is liking it and if it's worth me getting it now. So Bo, initial impressions.
Yeah, in the middle of installing Windows 10. Now, I installed it like a few hours after it went live. I was like, oh, sweet, it's online. Let me get it now. I didn't stop to check whether I'd lose all my data. So I ran the risk of losing all of our music and all of our recordings and everything we've done for the show, which is on my main computer. Even though I have a lot of it backed up on an external hard drive. And it's all online, of course. There was still stuff to be lost, so I was kind of kicking myself mid-installation, but it was too late. I had to keep going.
I would have killed you.
But it installed quickly. Took maybe an hour-ish. And everything seemed to work fine. At least all my games did. We took kind of a break from recording podcasts, so I hadn't really been in the podcast flow. And I think I'm having some technical issues, but all the programs I had installed remained installed and working just fine. It's like I hadn't left. Although there seems to be a few hiccups with a few programs I'm discovering today.
So does it like lead to any? I know there was talk about, what was it, a new DirectX or anything? Has that happened yet? Is there any added performance to your games or
I don't
whatever?
think my card would even support DirectX 11 games.
Yeah.
My card's kind of old, so I'm not sure if I'm taking advantage of it or not. I think a lot of the games that I'm playing are not even programmed for, like, the platform's got to get released. Then I think these companies will start releasing stuff that's designed for the platform. But everything seems to work fine.
What about the UI? Like the last one, Windows 8, was really tablet focused.
There's a different feel. I already had my computer set to load straight to desktop, and I think that lever stayed in place. So if there is a tablet aspect to it, I didn't see it. I didn't go looking for it. I do have this Cortana thing, which is like kind of like a Siri, I guess, deal. So I can speak into the microphone and ask Cortana questions, but she barely talks back to me. She mostly just Google stuff for me, and I'd rather just Google it myself. So
is it the same? Like, is it Cortana from Halo? Is it the same voice actors?
No, I don't think, no, not at all. It's like they've just taken the name. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, damn it, that would be awesome.
It might be, but it sounds pretty like Siri. Actually, Siri sounds really good. It doesn't live up to how Siri sounds quality wise. Yeah.
I think it's good for disability and for like just usability to have like that sort of functionality, but at the same point, for people like us who grew up with computers and sort of like were weaned on Windows, we kind of know what to do probably quicker than asking Cortana. I would be good for grandmothers, though.
Icons look a little more cartoony, which I don't like. But I mean, I really don't have a lot to say. It functions like Windows. It works like Windows. It's fairly similar to Windows 8 from a usability standpoint. I assume that this is supposed to be like the operating system that's going to get it. They're not making an 11 or 12. It's going to be this, and there's going to be a constant stream of updates. So I expect my experience to improve over time.
Did you hear about Solitaire being free to play?
It's always been free to play.
No. I mean free to play, but like, I mean, it's like you go on and now it's like there's microtransactions and stuff now.
Come on.
Yeah, it's and you can buy like
Solitaire is an institution. Do that for any other program, but Minesweeper and Solitaire, like, leave them shits alone.
You can buy like a season's pass for it of some sort, or like some ridiculous thing. Anyway, I'm not gonna go into it, but like it looks ridiculous. So I hope that the changes are for better and not for worse. I do like the fact that they're saying, okay, this is going to be the Windows platform now. It's sort of like, I feel like in our digital age, we're past the point of releasing. Like, we talked about this when we talked about annual releases of sports games and stuff, but like, it feels like release a platform and update it as needed, maybe have big updates and that. But aside from that, like, Windows is losing market share, so I mean, for them, it's a good idea to make it free to users, and I like a lot of what they've done. Would you say it's worth getting now, or should I wait a little bit for some of the patches?
Honestly, I probably just should have waited, because I do a lot of work on this system, and it clearly messed something up with my webcam. So
maybe give it a few months.
Yeah, there's no rush to upgrade if your system's working fine until you have a reason to, like a game that needs the new platform or something.
All right. Well, that is interesting. We will get your impressions as we go on your Windows 10 experience, because I think a lot of people are in my boat where we're sort of kind of happy with what we got and are kind of just waiting to see
There's no killer app right now.
Not yet, obviously. Yeah. All right, so since we're going to skip the news this week with the readme.txt that we like to do, we're going to just move right to the games that we're playing now in a segment we call Games Per Minute.
This is Games Per Minute.
How do you feel about cutting his head off?
Sorry, I was a little quick on the trigger there, bud.
Oh, no, whatever. It kind of sounds good. Sounds like a pro thing.
So you have a laundry list, and one of mine matches yours, so I'm going to start first with the one that doesn't match. I have Rocket League. So I've been playing Rocket League. it was kind of an impulse buy. It was kind of not a prudent purchase considering my finances of late. I was like, shouldn't have bought this, but I did. And it was actually worth every penny. This is a really fun game. Crofton, you're big on the couch co-op. You're big on fun multiplayer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's 100 other cutesy sports games out there, like Mario Kart and stuff like that.
I love Mario Kart.
This one is fairly fresh. So Rocket League is a game where you play as a car on a soccer field, and you play soccer with other people. There's AI controlled people, but you can have full 4-on-4 games with fully human controlled players. And the key ingredient here is that it's ridiculous. So ridiculous things happen, and you find yourself trying really hard to score goals, but the ball bounces in weird ways. But there's no power-ups or anything like that. It's super fun. And I don't know if it's still on the top games list on twitch.tv, but this was a heavily viewed game, in the past few weeks. There's a lot of hype
I'm sure
around
it's
it.
like a sports game. That's why you can watch matches like League of Legends and all that sort of stuff. You can watch matches of Rocket.
The big thing was that I think it was ESL or MLG has signed them up to be a game that they're going to do tournaments that are televised with, which is a big deal because I don't think there's a big following for actual FIFA games, for example. Like, this is kind of ridiculous, but they're trying to move it. I know the developers are interested in moving it into the esports realm, and there's a lot of excitement around it, even though it's a very basic game, I would say. Very basic, very fun.
See, that's funny because Danny O'Dwyer again did one of the points episode, this time on Rocket League on GameSpot, and I watched it, and it's funny because it's like much less impactful than, say, the Destiny one that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. But it really was focused on how it's an extremely simple concept, but it captures the game of soccer in many ways that FIFA can't. Because in FIFA, you control a whole team. Rocket League, you just control one, in this case, vehicle, player, whatever you want to call it. But it sounds like you can, do skill shots, like you can hit the ball, you control your speed, your velocity, the way you hit the ball, so you can do neat kind of moves and stuff that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do in other games, right?
Yeah, and I'm always trying to do bicycle kicks, so all the games I usually play with other players. I've been playing with Scott Johnson and John Jagger from Azeroth Roundtable, and so like when I'm playing, I'll be like, oh, I'm trying to bicycle kick, and it will always fail. I'll be like, bicycle kick, and it's just like, it's a head on your forehead kind of moment where it's like, it's not gonna work. I always try and get goals in the bicycle kick. It never works. But
it's funny because like when I was playing FIFA and they threw in the bicycle kick, and this is way back in like the late '90s FIFAs or whatever. Yeah. I was always like, everybody would always try and do bicycle kicks. It was like, bicycle kick, that's the most awesome thing you can do.
The thing about the car is, like, as a FIFA player, you can strafe, but cars can't strafe. Like, that's what, yeah. So it's just like, oh, I'm going to hit the ball, I'm gonna get it in, and you just run right past it, and then your enemy's like, got a breakaway to your net. It's like it's super fun. Like, the dynamic is super different than soccer because you're in a car, and cars are not made to play soccer. Would
you like, is Rocket League one of those games you play like a match and then or a couple of matches you're like, oh, that was fun, or is it like one of those addictive one more game where you're just playing all night?
It's one more game. The matches last 5 minutes, so you get in there, you're like, oh, I'm going to play 2 games. This is what always happens. I play 2 games, let's have a few quick matches after some heroes, whatever, and then we end up playing for like an hour or two because this is like, oh, we lost that one, we're so close, rematch.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of fun, and there's a lot of co-op aspects when you're playing with people. It's like pass the ball, and there's a lot of interactivity with getting it. You don't feel like you're ever, oh, I'm playing this game solo and I don't matter in the game. Like, you can set up coordinated plays, and that's pretty fun.
I'm gonna look out for that one. Like, I've heard enough good stuff. It sounds like they were working on this game for a while, and like it's funny. It feels like a game that could be like, you could have played on, I don't know, the Super Nintendo or something like that, with just like cars and a little ball.
Complex. It's very simple.
Yeah, which is awesome. Like, I mean, I'm all for simple. If anything, we have our mutual friend that we do the Good, Bad, or Bullshit podcast with, Mike Hodgins. He'll often, like, he's sort of a lapsed gamer, and we'll try to get him back into things. And he's much more apt to pick up something like Mario, that he's familiar with the sort of gaming vocabulary. than he is with something like The Witcher or something that's like dense and complicated or whatever. He wants that ease of access, and he wants to
Yeah.
be able to get in and get out. And I think Rocket League really meets that quite well. So
He
for
would
me,
play Rocket League. He would play it and like it.
yeah, and I'm interested in trying it as well. I'm going to definitely have it on my list. It's what I'm so spoiled with Steam, where I'm always like trying to get things on sale and all that. And so Rocket League's like $20. It's really not that expensive, but at the same point, I'm like I'm still kind of like, oh, maybe it'll go on sale or whatever. Meanwhile, I have other games to play, so it's kind of like I don't really have time right now.
I haven't really been playing it like dedicatedly. Like it's been like a Saturday or Sunday, a few hours here. Somebody says, "Hey, you want to play Rocket League?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Rocket League's fun."
Well, I've been looking for games like that. That's because The Witcher. I took a break, so I've been playing, as everybody knows, for the past months. I've been playing The Witcher 3, and I'm finally in the third major area of the game, which is possibly the biggest area in the game. It's huge, and called Skellige. I think Skellige. I don't even know how to say it properly, but it's all Vikings and Northerners and islands and stuff.
You're in Skyrim land.
Yeah, except Skyrim, it is thematically similar, except like, remember Vikings?
There were no Vikings in Skyrim, though.
No, but it was that sort of northern flavor.
Yeah.
This is more on the Viking side, so there's like warships and like, anyway, travel between islands. It's sort of like the Wind Waker meets Skyrim. Anyway, it's a total different game than the other areas, and still ridiculously fun. But I lapsed, and I was like, oh God, I hope I don't quit The Witcher. And I've gone back to it, and I'm starting to feel a bit of the wear now. But at the same time, I really, really don't want to lose the flow. I'm still going to keep playing it, and but I don't want to spend too much time on it because God knows I talk about The Witcher all the time. So I've been looking for games to kind of like offer me that easy in, easy out sort of couple of seconds of game action that are satisfying. And so Rocket League sounds like what the doctor ordered. I've been playing Ollie Ollie as well, that I mentioned. Like I started on the PS4 dashboard often before and after playing a game like The Witcher, or after a show on Netflix. I'm like, I'll do a run of Ollie Ollie. I like those quick games. So if a Rocket League game is only a few minutes, then that would be what the doctor ordered.
Yep, it's the perfect quick little game.
Other games I've been looking at lately are I talked about a couple episodes back. I think I talked about Shadow Complex and how much I liked it, and how I like Metroidvania type games, but how I have not played some of the major ones in Super Metroid and Shadow.
It's crazy you haven't played Super Metroid.
What's the Castlevania one? Shadow of the
Symphony of the Night?
Symphony of the Night. I haven't played either of those ones. And yeah, no, it seems ridiculous. I will get to them, I'm sure. But right now I'm trying to play the new hotness in those games, which is Ori and the Blind Forest. It was released earlier this year. And I'd say I'm about a third of the way through it. Like, I think they give you a percentage meter or whatever. And I'm really enjoying it. Like, first off, it looks super awesome. Like, gorgeous art style, really nice, looks cool. Secondly, the gameplay is really tight. So it is again like textbooks Metroidvania. So you go, the map grows bigger. You can only get to certain areas, get certain power-ups when you get certain skills. A lot of the skills are very much stuff from other games, like double jump, or like charge shot, or stuff that you would see.
Very familiar mechanics.
It's very familiar. And if anything, that is so far my kind of, people are gushing over this game. And the game has this kind of emotionally impactful opening sequence. It's very powerful and very sad. But it's kind of like, I don't want to say tonally different than the rest of the game, but then the game kind of starts after this intro, and then it's a game. Like, it's not like where the beginning felt almost like a movie or an animated show or something. Then it's like, it's a game, and then as you start playing the game, it's a fucking hard game. Like that's one thing. It's lots of like precision jumps and you know you've got to pull all sorts of skill platforming off as well as unlocking new things.
Yeah.
It always looks gorgeous, but it had just received so much positive praise that so far, as much as I enjoy it, I have to say, like, you know, some people were saying like, oh, this is the game of the year, screw The Witcher, screw all these other games, like Ori is, you know, the dark horse. And like, I mean, it could still change my mind between now and the end of the game, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone, but I just feel it's maybe a little overhyped. It's an extremely well-crafted version of a Metroidvania, but it doesn't seem to do anything remarkably new that I can see, aside from look gorgeous and have mastered the mechanics of those games like Super Metroid, right? So
yeah, but I really feel like that's the whole point of Metroidvania, is that the people will play the old versions of the games because that's what they're looking for, is that labyrinthian. I'm just checking out the trailer now too. It looks gorgeous.
Yeah, oh,
the art looks incredible on this. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's super awesome. Supposedly you can play it in 4K or something, and it looks like mind blowing. No, I honestly, it looks amazing. The music is super good. Like it's work. It's the best kind of crafting and workman. Like they're doing nothing innovative, but they're doing everything. It could have been made by Blizzard. They're taking
this is like, it's really strong on the art. Like some games have, if you were to measure different things, it just seems like these people are visual artists that are taking it to like the limits of how beautiful they can make it visually. So maybe you're right, they don't have ingenious mechanics.
Yeah,
like that's a vector that they're not like, we're gonna be the best Metroidvania mechanics wise, but the art's incredible. I'd play the art sells me on this. Totally.
It's just so funny because, or it is incredible. I agree.
Is the
100%.
music really good too?
The music is amazing.
Yeah.
So the music's good, the art's good. The story starts really strong, but then it's just like, really, you're just going around this area, and that the gameplay is extremely good because it's essentially a game that's existed for many, many years, and they've just put like this amazing coat of paint on it. So you know what you're getting. You're getting something really high quality, but it's not innovative really so far in many ways. I will say, though, just touching on the graphics again, I've been alternating between lots of different games with lots of different graphic styles. And sometimes I'd be playing a game like The Witcher 3, which I'm playing it on PlayStation 4, has really impressive graphics, like really technically impressive graphics. And it is the most technically, graphically impressive game I've probably ever played. And then to play Ori and then go back to The Witcher, I look at The Witcher and I'm like, man, at one point The Witcher is going to look dated. Even though it looks amazing, it's going to look dated. But Ori is never going to look dated. Like, you are going to play that game 10 years from now, it's still going to look super amazing. So I give them full credit for that. And it's a totally good game. It's just that some people have literally been going nuts recommending it, and so far I'm not there. And this is a really shallow thing, Bo, and I'm willing to point my finger at me for you know, this shallowness. But Shadow Complex, you play as like a dude, and I'm a dude, and he's exploring a cave, and then he stumbles into this thing, and then like I could really kind of identify with what's going on. Where in this game you're playing this little cutie creature, and he's cool. Like, he looks sort of like Stitch from the Disney Lilo and Stitch movie. He's cool, but I mean, it's like you're not. I
get what you're saying. There's no like no action adventure. Like, it's an okay, maybe it is action adventure, but like from like the backdrop of it is not something that's like, you know, because like Super Metroid, it's a girl, but you have guns and there's aliens. Like, it fits. There's a trope there that you enjoy, like a theme.
Or also,
you know?
It doesn't bother me that Samus is a girl. I much more easily identify with a girl than I do with a creature that doesn't exist. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, this is a little hoppity creature, and you get into it. Don't get me wrong, but it's just that there is that kind of, and I feel like I'm unjustly evaluating it on that, and I'm aware of my bias, and I'm aware of, like, you know, like the whole game's being designed for macho men power fantasies and stuff like that. and this is a game that is completely against that concept. If anything, you're extremely vulnerable from the beginning. People have called it like the Dark Souls of like Metroidvania games, and that it's super fucking hard. But yeah. Anyway, I like it, and right now I'm leaning a solid 8 out of 10. But who knows? When I finish the game, like I could really come out saying like, no, that's a I could go higher, like, yeah, I'm in the middle of it, so it's hard to
Yeah, yeah.
judge further.
Talking about this game reminds me of one of my favorite indie games, which is, have you heard of this game called Aquaria?
No, I've never heard of
It's
that
on
one.
Steam. It's also Metroidvania. It's very indie, like, but for its time, which I think maybe it's going on 8 years now. The idea was that it's like an indie two guys making it kind of game, but it's very beautiful, and you play as a mermaid underwater, and you have to go. You have the ability to sing, and the music and art in it are very beautiful. And it's designed to play with the keyboard and mouse, although you can controller it up. But it's a great game, and so I might make that a recommendation at one point. But that's another example of, it's a Metroidvania, but it's very, it's very brony. You're a mermaid and you sing songs to get your power ups and to do things, and everything's cutesy in a weird way, but it's very good too.
That's cool, man. That's the sort of thing you should be highlighting. I'd never
Yeah.
heard of that. I'm just seeing it now
it's
on
one
Steam.
it's one of my favorite games, and it's like, well, how much is it? Like $10? Like, it's so worth the $10.
Yeah, no, that's one I might check out after. I'm into the Metroidvanias. I have another one to talk about here. I'm also because I went on this trip, and I ended up bringing my PS4. I was at the not the cottage, but like I was out seeing my in-laws and stuff out of town. And so I played a bit of The Witcher and that sort of thing, but I brought my DS as well because I just thought it'd be more portable. And so I picked up a couple of games I wanted to like pick up and play for the 3DS, and one of them I picked up was originally a PC game, and it's there's multiple versions of it, and it's also found its home on the 3DS. It's called Cave Story. Have you ever heard of Cave Story?
I have. I own Cave Story Plus.
Yeah, Cave Story Plus is, I think, not. Some people would say it's the definitive version. There's all these sort of version things because the most graphically impressive version is there's a Cave Story on 3DS that was all done in 3D with 3D assets instead of 2D assets,
Oh, wow.
and it was sold in stores for like $40 or whatever. I'm not playing that version. I'm playing the one in the eShop that's like $10, but it is like the equivalent of your Cave Story Plus or maybe Cave Story regular. I have you played it, or
I
is it
have
one of
played
those?
some of it. Actually, it's one of those ones where I got started and I was having a good time, but I dropped
Yeah.
it for other things, basically.
It starts slow. I find it starts slow, and I started playing it, and I was like, oh, I don't know about this one. There'd been all sorts of hype and good reviews about it, so I was like, oh, maybe And there's talk about it being a Metroidvania, and maybe it kind of is, but where I'm at so far, it feels more like a solo adventure. It feels quite unique in its structure. But one thing that's neat is that you get these guns, and they level up, and there's a lot of almost like Contra style shooting the crap out of everything. But also like solving light puzzles, and there's a story that's kind of unfolding as it goes and stuff. Again, like Ori, I'm probably like 33% through it, and so I don't have like a whole formed opinion yet, but so far I'm enjoying it quite a bit. And like I had played some of these retro games like Shovel Knight and stuff, and this one really has made more of an impression with me so far than Shovel Knight did. I did like Shovel Knight, but I'm enjoying maybe the story more, the gameplay a little bit more on this. So far, Cave Story, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's kind of one that I wish I would get back to, but there's just so much to play that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, I'll tell you, I'll make the hard sell on you when I'm done if I think it's worth playing. And it's one of those things where like it fits really well on the 3DS, like as a portable game. I'm not sure if like sitting at my computer with a controller, maybe it would be worth it. Maybe it would be. Sometimes my hands start hurting or cramping up a little bit on the 3DS. So who knows? And it'd be tough to know where it would be best to play. So aside from Rocket League, are you been playing anything else? I think you
So the
have.
last games, I've been playing a ton of Warframe, which I'm interested to get your opinion on because you apparently did give it a try. Probably because I said you should try it. But
Yes, that's
so
exactly why.
Warframe is a
And
game.
because it
Yeah,
was free.
yeah, it's free to play. So that's a good price. And there's something about Warframe that just like, I'm just like I just keep playing it. Like it's weird. I really enjoy it. It's non-linear, and if you haven't tried it, it's free to play. Go check it out. Basically, you're a space ninja. You don't have a gender because you swap between warframes. So you're basically sometimes you're a man, sometimes you're a woman. And there's even a warframe they just introduced that is both man and woman, and you can swap between the two genders as you play. The gender's not really important. What's important here is they have awesome powers, but you never actually see who you are underneath it all. So the concept is that you get molded into different armors, and that's your warframe, the name of the game. And you go and fight the Grineer, which are like cloned people, except they're decaying because they overcloned, and these Corpus guys who love business, and the Infested, which are like, you know, exactly what it sounds like, infested aliens. And there's some like void people and other crap. But basically, it's a cooperative game where the idea is you play different types of missions like horde mode and spy, and you just go to different planets and play it. There's a story to it, but it's very much
Garbage.
random game. So it's like Diablo in that it's procedurally generated. So it's
Yeah.
interesting that the levels are never the same, but you get to know the tile sets. So Crofton, interested to hear that you find it garbage.
No, I didn't say it was garbage. I said the story was
Oh,
garbage.
yeah. I mean, the story is not really there. What's fun about it, the reason, and you know what? I don't know. Did you play in the new update? They just updated the game, update 17. They introduced
I played it this over a week ago.
Okay, so then you need to play it now because they've changed all the parkour controls. So now being a ninja is even better. You can do all these sweet new moves, running around and flying everywhere. It's amazing.
Do you play with the controller or the mouse and keyboard?
Mouse and keyboard all the way. Like
Yeah, well, I just felt it felt like a controller game.
it's designed for PlayStation. They have it on PlayStation and Xbox. It's designed for both, so both are equally viable.
Well, I just picked up my Xbox controller and started playing because as soon as I see third person games, generally I lean towards controller, right? So I started picking it up when I started playing it because I did play it based on your recommendation, and to be honest, I am going to keep playing it. I'm not sure how much or whatever, but the first thing that struck me was like because it came out kind of heavy with story right off the bat. Like there were cutscenes, and I thought it was just going to be like, I don't know, I thought it was going to be like really MMO-y, but it was really like you felt like there's a story going on, and the story was garbage. I was like, oh man, this is sci-fi garbage 101. They're throwing out names without defining anything. You have to work your ass off to figure out what the hell they're talking about. All of it is like fairly generic and all that sort of stuff. And then I played through the tutorial level, and the tutorial level is cool because you kind of like get a new, you learn a skill and then you do it a couple of times and then you learn a new skill. So then you get a sense of how it controls. And I felt right then that like it was a type of game that especially teenage Crofton would have been all over. Or like when Gears of War 1 came out and I was really into Gears of War 1, like around that time I would have really been into this because that third person sort of action adventure and the shooting and all that was really appealing to me. I found it super easy at the beginning. Like I was just like, I didn't know how to play. I was standing in the middle, everybody was shooting me and I was killing everyone anyway. But then I finished the tutorial, got to my ship, and I started doing a couple of missions, and it was kind of like I was kind of getting blasé on it a little bit. I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of, especially I've been playing beautiful games like Ori and the Blind Forest and even The Witcher, and the tiles and the graphics are, it's all very metallic and kind of cold and all this, and I wasn't super into it. But then like some random dude invites you, he's like, hey, you want to do this mission, the next sort of story mission, or to get some part for my ship, to upgrade my ship. I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll play with you, random dude. We didn't talk the whole time, like I was just on my controller, but we kind of, it was like that sort of like you know, he waited for me, I would wait for him. We would sort of try and do kind of things together. Then the mission was done. I went back to my ship. I upgraded it. He's sending me a message. He's like, "Want to do next mission?" I almost felt like he was a staff member trying to like encourage me to play the game. And I was like, "Okay, dude, I'll play another mission." So then I went back in, and then we must have did like 4 or 5 missions. And then I was like, okay, I have to go to bed or whatever. But he was every time he was like, "That was fun. Want to do other mission?" And it felt like he was like feeding me drugs or something.
He's probably a young guy. Because if you
oh,
know
no,
where
it
to
was
look,
super nice.
like I'm in a clan with about 600 people in it. Like there are lots of people who are in the game, but because it's not an MMO, you just spend your time in the ship. It's like, you know, it's hard when as a new player. Where are all the people, you know?
It was cool, yeah, and it was cool that this guy is like just comes up. Like I did literally mission 2 or 3 with him, so he must have been a newbie. Like he was newbie like me. We both had kind of the similar.
You were both mastery rank 1. There's a little there's a little number next to your portrait. That's your like player level. So it's the noob indicator basically.
And see, we don't even like, I don't know. I haven't gotten to any of the pay elements yet, really. Like I haven't played that long. It's just been like running around with my ninja sword and chopping dudes, and it feels a bit like games like Borderlands and that, where there's unlimited like little dudes to kill. What I like about this game is just that it, like, as much as the sci-fi shit is garbage and as much as the story doesn't intrigue me at all, I do like that it is like a co-op based game with third person and sort of these cool moves. It feels original enough that it's not like a Me Too shooter or whatever. And I do really like that. I'm like, that's why I know I'm gonna go back to it, because I was like, oh yeah, I could see myself playing this with Bo, and we would just like run through a few missions. The missions are generally pretty short. It was kind of fun doing some stuff, and like you could drop from a line and stab some dude, and it was cool. So yeah, like I liked it. I'd say again, I liked it, but I didn't love it, but I liked that it exists.
Yeah, and so there's two more things I think we need to talk about, and then we need to move on. But one, do you like the login screen? Because I think it's got one of the best login screens ever, where you're just kneeling in front of the ship, and then you log in and turn around and you start playing. Like,
I do. It definitely. And Bo, you and I talked about this, how like from PlanetSide 1 to PlanetSide 2, I really liked. In PlanetSide 1, how there'd be little animations getting into things. It really gave a sense of cohesiveness to the world and such. And I like that login screen. I find it works in the same sort of way. And I like the ship as kind of like your little base of operations.
Yeah, the ship is really cool. It's one of the cooler, like, you know,
yeah.
Even though it's super small and cramped, your Lizette is a cool place to hang out, I think. The other thing that I wanted to mention, I think it might have slipped my mind. Damn it. Oh, that, you know, one thing I'd caution you about with that game is that basically the reason to play is to get new guns and level them up, and get new Warframes and level them up. Like, there's no reason. It's not like Witcher where you're like, man, what's the resolution to the Warframe story? It's like, who cares? I want to, what Warframe am I working on next? And it is a bit grindy. So like the Equinox Warframe, which is new, requires like 8 parts to drop from this one boss. And so I ran it like 7 or 8 times. It doesn't take too long, 10 or 20 minutes to run the level, but it's grindy. And I'm like,
that would drive me nuts.
Like,
I would quit that.
Yeah, like I'm at the point where I'm like, I kind of want the Equinox Warframe. I don't want to spend, you know, how it's like $10, I think, in space points, whatever, platinum.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to get it for free because I'm playing this game mostly for free. The one thing you can't get for free is, like, you know how you have a Warframe? Well, if you want to build another Warframe, you have to buy slots for it. It's like 20 platinum, which I think is maybe $1, but it's still a little annoying. So I got a login reward for 50% off, so I spent like $250 on getting 70 platinum for some slots. Yeah. But the long term, there's like 10 or 15 Warframes. You know, they're gonna get a bit of money off you.
So like right now, I'm sort of like, all I'm doing is there's story missions. It's like I'm getting components to fix my ship, or something. So like right now there's a drive, and there's this guy that keeps appearing holographically, some sort of general dude that I assume I'm going to kill at one point.
Yeah. Yes, you will.
Yeah. So I'm just like, for me, there's a story like that's pushing me through. It's a shitty story, but like, I mean, there is this story. I'm not at that point where it's just a giant grind fest yet.
Yeah.
I'm sure at that point I would drop because I'm not
Yeah,
interested in
that's
giant grind
and
fest.
the long term is that's what it is. So if you want to log in and play some games with me and have some fun being a space ninja, it's cool. But I'm starting to find that's the case. I've got 3 max level Warframes that I've potatoed and formud, which are in-game lingos for like the cap on all of your gear. You can grind it to be like super powered, but it takes a while. So you keep playing missions. But like Rocket League, it does. You can play the same missions over again as long as you're having fun. So I kind of like survival mode missions and that kind of thing. But it's fun. Like I keep coming back to it. But it is a bit of. I saw somewhere that like basically the makers of Destiny essentially copied Warframe, and that Warframe is the better Destiny for a lot
Oh
of
yeah, and it could
Warframe
potentially
fans.
be. It did seem sort of like in that same genre, you know.
Because Warframe is free, but Destiny's like, here, give us a whole bunch of money just to play. But I don't want to get into that debate. But it's the same thing. It's like roughly the same thing.
I hear that. So Warframe, but Warframe, like you put in so much time, it's got to be a recommend for you.
It
Like
is. I enjoy it.
yeah,
I enjoy it, but it's a recommend. Just know what you're getting into. You're gonna have to do a lot of research on your own as to what's good. There's a lot of player traps in terms of you might spend platinum on something you could easily get for free, and there's nothing in the game to point you in the right direction except for the wiki or people in the game to be like, oh, don't buy that. Like,
yeah.
you can get that for free. So there's a bit of that going on, which I don't like.
I've played one other game this week, but I want to save it for the dialogue tree. So because I think that it's worth mentioning there. Um,
Okay.
because of the discussion we're going to have this week. But just before we move on, I will say that I have played a lot of Ollie Ollie. I know I mentioned it last week, but it's I got back into it, and that sort of thumb candy type game. Is one that I really enjoy. So I might shell out for Ollie Ollie 2. If you're listening and you've played Ollie Ollie 2 and if it's better than the first one, like I haven't finished the first one, but it's getting too hard for me honestly. So let me know. All right, dialogue tree.
Now that there's one fine dialogue tree.
So, the dialogue tree segment of the show is where we discuss a topic. We take a topic in the video game world and we have a little conversation about it. So, this week we sort of pre selected a topic. This is one that was on my mind, and I'll tell you where it comes from. First of all, a little background. I bought Super Mario Brothers 3 from the eShop before going on my trip to play on my Nintendo 3DS. So I was playing Mario Brothers 3. This is the exact, like, this isn't like the Mario All-Stars version. This isn't Mario Advanced version. This is like the original Super Mario Brothers 3 as was released on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And I played it on the 3DS. I'm still playing it and enjoying it, incidentally. But it led me to thinking about games because Bo mentioned last week or the week before he was playing Batman Arkham City, and he was playing it with the mouse and keyboard, and I wanted to just slap him because I felt like that game was so designed with the controller in mind. And so it got me to thinking about how important it is to play a game the way it was designed in terms of obtaining overall enjoyment for that game. And I think it's becoming more important with game preservation becoming a thing. So as new consoles are released, old ones get shelved. People are trying to find ways to emulate old consoles. I remember, like, even in the late 90s, I was already emulating Super Nintendo games on my PC. And then I'd be playing the Super Nintendo games with a keyboard as opposed to the controller, you know. And I was playing it on a like LCD monitor as opposed to my CRT TV. And so the effect I was getting was different. And so my question to you, Bo, is do you think that it is important to play games the way that they were originally intended? Or do you think that you can play them you can pick up a game in another sort of format or a re-release or something like that and obtain equal enjoyment as you would, had you played it the first time?
That's a difficult question. I think a lot of those pixel-based games don't translate well to our modern monitors, and so something is lost. Um, but I don't know, given that the way games have evolved, that even if I had a CRT monitor or an old school television, that I'd still want to play those games. I'd probably prefer playing those games on the original platform, though, because that's how it was designed and intended to be consumed. So, these re-releases on other devices, and I say handheld aside because if you're getting like Super Mario Brothers 3 on your handheld, for example, that's like, it's like a target platform. Like, you want it to be portable, so you're sacrificing that to play it portable. But for the most part, like Super Metroid, I think it'd be better on an actual like CRT television than a flat screen. But it depends on the game. Some translate really well. I think it's probably fine to play Metroid on a flat screen.
I think that, like, because you have these games that are like, I played Super Mario Brothers 3 on the 3DS, and I'm not sure if you remember playing on the original Nintendo controller. They're like these, they were not ergonomically correct in any way, shape, or form. They're these rectangles with sharp edges that would dig into the sides of your
and it gets super
and,
warm when you've held them for a while, and
yeah,
exactly.
And so if anything, the 3DS, because of my hands being giant man hands and it being like not small, but it's not. I was cramping a little bit on the hands, and it felt like I was like, hey, this is like how it used to feel when I played it on the original Nintendo. But it was funny because on the screen, like, it was on the upper screen and it was emulated, so like there were black bars on the side. And there's a little flicker, and it was clearly not an ideal monitor even to be playing it on. And it just made me think of like a lot of these games that are no longer, like, you'll tell somebody, hey, this game is super awesome, you should play it. Like, you're telling me Super Metroid is super awesome, you enjoy Metroidvania Croft, and you would enjoy it, but you missed it. So you missed that moment in time when it was released on the Super Nintendo. You missed sitting down with the Super Nintendo controller in your hand, it dark in your mom's basement, playing it on a CRT TV. Now you'll be playing it on an emulator on your computer with like an Xbox 360 controller, if you can get that to work correctly. Are you still getting, like, an optimal experience? Is it even worthwhile? Will you even understand what all the fuss is about? These are sort of things that I wonder.
Yeah, I think so. I think that if the game is really good, it does translate across. I think there are a lot of games that we are nostalgic for that weren't good then, but we liked them because that's what was available, like Bad Dudes, or or what is it, Fists of Fury or Fury Ray? There was one for the Super NES that was really, that like we played a lot, and that if I would never play anymore because even I have no nostalgia for it, and it was actually really crappy, So I think it's more to the timelessness of certain games, like the excellence with which they were programmed and artistically created, that still translates now, because people watch, like, there's Super Metroid speedruns all the time on Twitch.
Yeah, I know.
And they're fun to watch. Like, they're not unfun to watch.
I understand that, but that's based on a shared nostalgic experience, right? That's based around perhaps knowing the game inside out and watching somebody like just perfect it. I get the appeal of that, but as a first time new player, it wouldn't necessarily, like, is that the ideal? Even though you can up-res it, even though you can maybe even get mods for it, who knows, to make it look sweet. Like, I don't know, like, I feel like, Take Nintendo games, okay? Nintendo almost always uses some sort of crazy controller. It wasn't just the Wiimote. Like, before the Wiimote, they had, like, the Nintendo 64 controller was crazy. It's like this giant T weird thing in your hand with buttons. And there's some of the greatest games of all time that were released for the Nintendo 64. Some of them may not have aged necessarily super well, but, like, I think of how Mario 64 felt. Like, it felt amazing, like perfect thumb candy. How you could pull the wall jumps, the side jumps, and all that sort of stuff. I think about any way that I would play that game now, and I'm not sure that it would feel the same way, or if part of it lay in the Nintendo 64 controller, right? And a perfect design for it. With the Wii, it's even more amplified because they have like a motion controller. So if you get an emulator for the Wii or something, you would have to find some way, like as we move further and further away from the Wii, and at one point people won't have a bunch of motion controllers lying around. Like, how will you play those games, and will it still be worth playing those games if you find some sort of like way to replace it with a mouse and keyboard, say, like to, or will it make the game shitty?
Yeah, I think there's some gimmicky games that just won't translate well in the future, but I think a lot of these controller games that sort of fit that standard paradigm. I don't know.
I'll give you an example of. Oh, go ahead, Bo.
Well, I just think that if you're approaching these old games as a first-time player on a new platform, you are not getting the experience because of the hype alone. Because it's old. Because it's not. There's no like, oh my god, play Super Metroid. It's still amazing. Like a young person experiencing games for the first time is not going to be excited by Super Metroid. They're going to be excited by, what's the current hype, which is like Minecraft or Destiny or Call of Duty, whatever's big and hype. Like that's what they're interested. What people are talking about. I don't.
Okay. Here, let me give you an example. Let's look at a couple recent examples because that's a good point. So Ubisoft has announced that it's going to release a Wii U launch game, called Zombie U. It's going to release for PS4 and Xbox One and PC. It's just going to be called Zombie with no E or whatever at the end. Yeah. I imagine that they're going to find some way of like altering what were the Wii U mechanics, because the big thing about that game was that you couldn't pause, so you would scavenge. So say I found a body and I was looting it for supplies, zombies are around me or whatever. The game wouldn't pause, but I would be only able to see the loot on the tablet that came with the Wii U, so you look down at the tablet, you'd have to look away from the monitor. So you're looking away. Meanwhile, zombies could be attacking you. So it was really made with the Wii U in mind. And they're now going to find some way to hodgepodge it. And I'm not saying they're going to be unsuccessful, but it feels kind of like this is that when you design a game for a console, preserving it becomes difficult, and capturing the experience, it feels like the best way to have the experience is to go back and find it on that original system, as complicated as it is. And sometimes it might sour you on a game playing it on in a shittier version of it.
Yeah, I just think companies are like, well, how can we wring more money out of this? Like, I don't think they care. I think they care that you get a good experience out of it. Like, they're not going to release a turd, or they're going to try not to, at least internally to their standards. But I think they leave that to the community enthusiasts to say like, oh yeah, play this game on its original platform is the way to play. You're almost like being like a wine connoisseur, where it's like, this wine, you don't drink wine out of a some mug. You have to drink it out of a glass made from the finest glass maker in all of Italy or something, so when you're espousing like games are best on their on their intended platforms originally, that I'm inclined to agree that that's the case, but I feel like that's an enthusiast's perspective.
Yeah, I guess so. If it's between, it's just tricky because sometimes if it's between playing that game how it was originally intended or not ever getting to play it at all. There's some games I would say just don't play it if you can't play it the way that it was originally intended. And then there's other games that I would say, no, you need to play that game no matter how you play it, even if it's a shittier experience. As much as I want to slap you for playing Arkham City with a mouse and keyboard, I would want to slap you more for never having played Arkham City. So I mean, it's kind of
especially
like
since it was a gift from you.
That did double slap. Yeah. But I'll give you an exception or an example of someone done right. Okay, I played one of my favorite games for a long time was Resident Evil 4, and I got it on GameCube when it came out, it was an exclusive to the GameCube. at that time, and I was super into it. It worked well with the GameCube controller, but there was nothing necessarily too proprietary about the way that it played. Like, it could easily be adapted. It was eventually adapted to the PlayStation 2 and that sort of thing. And that was not too complicated because it was a traditional third party, a third person shooter. But I eventually rebought that game for the Wii, the original Wii, and it remains to this day possibly my favorite Wii game in terms of controls. So it took a game that was designed for a GameCube controller originally, uh, and then it redesigned it for the Wii controller, which is aiming at the screen, a nunchuck, a really weird controller. Like, I think you're going to look back at history, it's going to be one of the weirdest controllers. But not only did it work, it worked well. It worked way better than the original, to the point that if somebody asked me, hey, I'm looking to play Resident Evil 4, I'd say play it on Wii. Take my Wii and play this version. This is by far the best version. And they released it recently in HD on Steam, and I would still tell people screw the HD version on Steam and play the SD version with the Wii controller. I mean, that's the money version. So in a way, they took something and they improved upon it, but I think that's a rare case. I think most of the time, as you adapt for the future, you're going to make your game shittier.
Yeah, that's probably the case.
That's
probably the case.
I got nothing.
I think I'm done. I think that if it's for enthusiasts, if you have a special memory that you like in a given certain configuration, that's good. But I think games can work just fine on other things, and some people just don't care. And especially if they don't know what they're missing, then they're doubly ignorant. So, yeah.
I'll just close this dialogue tree with a plea to Nintendo to start releasing stuff on the eShop, because especially for the 3DS, it's ridiculous how barren it is. The fact that the only thing that I found of interest to me was Super Mario Brothers 3. Like, they need to start releasing some Game Boy Advance games at the very least, so I can play me some sweet Astro Boy on my DS. Anyway, let's move on. Sorry.
Nope. Let's now we have something completely different for you.
Inventory management is a challenging and inexact science.
Welcome to Inventory Management, where we answer the question, spend your cash or vendor trash. And this week, Crofton and I have new recommendations, but I'm going to go first since mine is an actual game. Oh, I've given you a hint that something's amiss in today's inventory management. My recommendation is Rocket League, and I've talked a lot about Rocket League at the top, and all of your friends have been talking about Rocket League as well. So, I'm just going to say the game is fun and it's only $20, so if you've got the $20, it's a worthwhile purchase.
Sweet. Anything else that you would add about Rocket League? Do you need a soup-up computer to play it, or?
Nope, you can play it. I'm sure it's available. I think it's available on PCs or on PS4. I'm not sure about Xbox.
Oh,
the matchmaking is cross-platform, so you could get matched with people on consoles when you're playing your PC game.
I think it was free with PS Plus when it came out.
Yeah,
like,
that
I
might
think
have been
it's
the
free
case.
on PlayStation.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'll have to check it out on PlayStation, because then I could play you, even though I'm playing it on my...
We can't play together, so there's no cross-platform partying up. So whatever your friends are playing, you should play on that same...
fine.
Yeah. So if you want, you don't have to play with me. Maybe you don't want to play with me. That's cool. Especially if you get it for free.
Fine, be that way. That's all right.
Man.
I don't need to play with you. I'll play with my other friends that like Rocket League. I got dozens of them.
Man, just buy it on PC and play with us.
All right. Okay, so my recommendation this week is, as Bo alluded to, not a game. Reason is, as I mentioned with all my games, I'm midway through. I really don't like recommending until I'm totally done with them. So all those games are ones that I've already recommended. The Witcher, which I made an exception for. So all the other ones, Ori, Super Mario Brothers 3, I could recommend that. I've finished it before, but it's old. I'm going to pass. Cave Story, all that. I'll come back to those if they're worthy recommends. So what I did do this week was I watched the second season of this animated television show on Netflix called BoJack Horseman. And I would very much recommend BoJack Horseman season 1 and 2. Takes a little while to get into season 1. I'd say it's an acquired taste, maybe 3 or 4 episodes. I used to shit on the show Mad Men. Everybody loved Mad Men. Everybody would talk about how great Mad Men is together, and it would make me sick. BoJack Horseman is sort of like Mad Men, and that kind of drives me nuts that I like it so much, but it got me with the humor, and now I'm in for the drama and the character flaws and all that. And it's a show about a cartoon horse living with people, and I know that sounds ridiculous, but it uses this vehicle that seems like another show like Family Guy or The Simpsons or whatever. And after a few episodes, it becomes something completely different. It becomes a show about really a character dealing with depression. And it's very, very interesting. Somebody who has like self-destructive habits, just when it looks like that they're free or they've had their big break, they find some way to bring themselves down, and they feel like that they don't deserve it. It's very interesting. All the side characters, the voice acting, all of it is great. The end of season 2 is brutal, but it's still like you just can't stop watching, and you keep wanting to see the next episode. And of course, there's some hilarious bits too, because it's like a dark comedy in many ways. I've never seen a show quite like it. So for that reason, I'm taking my spot today to make BoJack Horseman season 2 to be my recommend. I remember liking season 1 a lot too. I watched it when my baby was born last year, and I was up in the middle of the night with her, and so it's kind of like BoJack and I have that connection now. It's like been a whole year since my baby was born. I'm like, oh, it's BoJack season 2. So totally worth watching. Bo, have you seen BoJack?
Yes, and I didn't like it very much at all. I watched about 3 episodes. I didn't laugh once, and
you didn't get over the hump. That's fair enough.
You know, yeah. So like, I watched 3 episodes. I didn't laugh once. It had like Jesse Pinkman. I forget the actor's name.
Aaron Paul.
Yeah, he's, I like the guy from Breaking Bad. That was interesting to me. Will Arnett plays BoJack Horseman.
Yeah.
So like,
it's possibly his best role, even better than Job. He gets pretty good and does a lot of I totally understand. And if you read reviews for season 1, Bo, you are not alone. There's a lot of people, because it changes about halfway through season 1. It's hard to even explain, and I'd have to rewatch it again, but it changes direction and if it hadn't all released at once, I don't even know if I would have stayed with it. But definitely by the end of season 1, it's firing on all cylinders, and season 2 is great the whole way through. And there's definitely moments that I'm laughing out loud. At one point, not to spoil anything, this is in season 1 and 2. Princess Caroline, BoJack's agent, starts dating this guy called Vincent Adult Man, who's essentially 3 children on top of each other wearing a trench coat. And nobody can see it except BoJack. Like, everybody's like, have you met Princess Caroline's new boyfriend? He is so well-made. He's well-mannered or whatever. And BoJack will talk to him. And he's like, is it clear to everybody else that this is just 3 children standing on top of one another? Anyway, it's just a running joke. And as those running jokes go, it becomes increasingly funny. I don't know, Bo. I can understand you dropping, but it is a good show for sure. Season 2 has gotten amazing reviews.
Yeah. It seems like I should like it, but when I watch it, I just don't enjoy it. So I don't go on me, because if Crofton recommends it, it's probably pretty good. But just didn't hook me.
Hey, lots of people told me that Mad Men was awesome. I watched 2 seasons of Mad Men, and then I was like, you know what? It's not for me or whatever. So, I mean, like, some shows are just not, they don't scratch the itch the right way, right? So.
Yep. That's about it. So there you have your recommendations: BoJack Horseman and Rocket League. So
BoJack Horseman season 2.
Plenty of awesome things to do out there in the world. Those are 2 of them. All right. Now I think it's time to give them the business, Crofton.
That sounds dirty, but I think I know what you mean. So yes, you can follow our podcast, and we would love it if you did at EXM Podcast on Twitter. We have a website, actually. It's called exmpodcast.com. And there we put up all our episodes, and we also have my blog, The Question Mark, full of great gaming goodness. We have a Facebook page, facebook.com/EXM podcast. And if you have sort of any ideas for the show, topics you want to see discussed, games you want to see discussed, please email us at exmpodcast@gmail.com. We live stream as much as possible. We took a little break during the summer, but we're back now. Twitch.tv/EXM podcast on Monday nights. If you follow us on Twitter, we generally tweet out when we're about to go live. For those of you that do participate, like who come and comment, we really appreciate it. We love to see you. The one thing is we are filming the show, so it limits our interaction, right? We can talk afterwards and that sort of thing, but during the show, Bo and I like to give each other the business. That sounded horrible. And of course, if you like this show, we have a sister show. It's called Good, Bad, or Bullshit. And if you go to goodbadbull.com, you can check it out. And all of our shows, Good, Bad, Bull, and EXM, available on iTunes, available on Stitcher. You can get an RSS feed, or, there's a way to listen to the show if you want to listen to it. And we really hope you do. Episodes go up on YouTube as well. So my name is Crofton Steers. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Crofton Steers. Hear my tweets about Canadian type things, as I'm a Canadian, eh? And Bo, if people want to reach you, how would they reach you?
Well,
do you have a clever Twitter handle?
If any of you boys there want to go out for a rip, then you can just tweet me at Bo Schwartz, eh? Have you seen Out for a Rip, by the way? It's kind of old, but it's pretty funny. You know what I'm talking about? We got into a fight there, eh? And I was like, "You ripped my jacket, bud."
Oh yeah, I think I have seen that. We're very Canadian.
Yep, this is your Canadian gaming content right here on Twitch. They're filling the CanCon requirements.
If you haven't figured that out yet, eh?
Yeah, eh? Jeez. Let's go down to the Tim Hortons before we go out drinking.
We should change our names to Danny and Terry or something.
You want to hear something really Canadian? And this isn't a plug for the show because I'm not really saying the show's any good, but there's this podcast called Jonovision, and it's got Jonathan Torrens.
Yeah, Jono. He used to have a TV show on CBC called Jonovision.
And he's in Trailer Park Boys, so a lot of I'm sure his podcast is more popular than ours. And this is literally it's called Jonovision, and you want to hear some Canadian accents? Oh my god, they're not. It's not putting it on, man. So check it out if you want to hear some Canadian podcasts. I talked to Bill down at the store, and he said, "Whoa, what are you doing with hanging out with Terry? Oh my, bud, you got some big problems going on there." Like, man, and I'm like, "This is Jonovision. He's like on TV. Like, can't he talk normal?" But
maybe he's just appealing to the hardcore Canadian market.
Just being himself, and that's
you got to
great.
Speak their language.
It's just, man, it is hard to listen to, even as a Canadian. So,
speaking of hard to listen to, we're now going to close out our show with a little segment that we love to call the Mastergame Theatre Quote of the Week.
Oh my God. You made me laugh so much. I have no idea where the sound clip is.
There it is.
It's now time for Mastergame Theatre.
All right. So this week we are doing a game I have never played, but will play, I am sure. It is called Star Wars Shadow of the Empire. No, it's Castlevania Symphony of the Night. All these names are the same. Castlevania Symphony of the Night, one of the great Metroidvanias of all of the times. So this exchange is between a man named Richter, who I don't know, and a guy called Dracula, who I think I do know based on popular culture.
Who is Dracula?
Dracula? He sounds like a nice man.
What kind of Eastern European name is that?
Jeez.
Dracula. All right,
okay,
but Castlevania Symphony of the Night is a popular game, and I think this next little bit is part of a lot of internet memes when it comes to, some well-known interactions between gaming characters. So I'm going to play the role of Dracula.
Yeah, you're pretty nocturnal.
Dracula.
I'll be Richter. Okay, so I'm gonna start, and then you go, and then we'll end the show. So thank you for listening, listeners. All right, here we go. Now I'm Richter, and scene begins now. Your words are as empty as your soul. Mankind ill needs a savior such as you.
What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets? But enough talk! Have at you! I think you got Richter wrong, but I still enjoyed your interpretation of Richter's lines.
I'm glad. I told people I have no idea who Richter is.
See that link to YouTube there? There's a video where you could do like 5 seconds of research. But
yeah,
I'm being
I didn't
an ass.
have 5
I'm
seconds.
Sorry. I'm being an ass. I'm being a perfectionist. You didn't read Richter right. What the hell? What the hell?
Next
You're a
time, Bo.
professional.
Next time. They can't all be winners.
That's true.
So it's 10:01. Do you got to run to your game?
No, I had to cancel